Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Harold and Maude, which released in 1971 from writer Colin Higgins and director Hal Ashby. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Harold, played by Bud Cort. Harold is kind of in a dark patch of his life and is trying to get out from underneath his overbearing mother. He comes across Maude, played by Ruth Gordon, who starts to show him a new way to look at the world, and he starts to understand love.
I should like to change into a sunflower most of all. They're so tall and simple. What flower would you like to be?
I don't know.
So this film came out early 70s, right, with the hippie love and very counterculture period of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Especially, and this film kicked up a bit of a controversy when it came out.
Oh, right.
Because, thematically, critics looked at it and went, nobody wants to watch a movie where a teenage boy wants to have sex with their grandma. And so it kind of...
This is pre-graduate, right?
Yeah.
Just checking,
But since this film's release, it has been loved and cherished by film fans, cinema fans, and eventually critics around the world. This film has been celebrated. It has become a cult movie.
Nice.
And anyone who is a fan of cinema has very likely seen this film. Thankfully, as well, this film got a stunning Blu-ray release almost 10 years ago now. So it absolutely looks fantastic.
I mean, I gotta say, I'm kind of at loss for words with this movie, and I know that's a bit of a shock, because, this movie hit some chords. It tugged on some heartstrings, and I suppose I was well relaxed as I was getting ready to watch it, because when Gary and I said, we've got Harold and Maude next, I remember saying to you, it's like, oh, is that Bud Cort? And you were like, really? Bud Cort's in it? And we had a quick look, and we got a quick flick of Harold hanging in his front room, which we were like, is this a comedy?
Right, I think it is. It's a romantic comedy.
It's in the first 5 minutes we're seeing a guy hanging in his front room. But when I sat down to watch the film, normally I'm I'm ready to analyze and take apart. And
did you?
I did months ago, because before it was on the list, it just so happened I was going through Wikipedia, and I happened to wiki Harold and Maude, and I was like, oh, that'll be interesting to watch one day. Not even thinking it was on our fucking list. So then when I was ready, I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I couldn't remember where the story went. I just knew that, Bud Cort met up with Ruth Gordon, who's just an absolutely fucking lovely, fucking amazing actress who just, if... I'm not saying that female actresses nowadays don't know how to act. I'm just saying that if you look back at some of them who had to work through the silent movie era, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and still have a career leading into the 60s, 70s, and 80s, those actors and actresses, really knew their craft. And the movie, oh man, I gotta say as well, before we get too deep into this, Cat motherfucking Stevens.
Well... yeah. I never thought I would be in agreement with this.
I've always kind of liked Cat Stevens. My mum kind of, brought me up on that kind of era of music between that and Dr. Hook and some others. I listened to the music and I didn't understand what they were singing about, because a lot of them are messages of that generation type of thing. But there was a part of me while watching this film thinking, oh, they're using way too much Cat Stevens. It's being used way too much. And then there was a whole section where it wasn't in for ages.
Right, yeah.
So then when he kicked back in, I was like, Cat, you're back! I miss you!
Well, yeah, I mean, his music doesn't necessarily fit too well with some of the more morbid interests that Harold has throughout the film.
Yeah.
Our introduction to him, Harold doesn't even speak for his first 7 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
And the opening of the film, even when the title pops up, we just watch this figure. We don't even see who it is. We just see this figure walk down the stairs and walk off preparing. I mean, the somber feeling of this, the way that the way that the film doesn't even show you who this is, like the film language is saying this is pre-suicide.
Yeah.
It all feels like we're watching a ritualistic suicide, and he hangs himself.
Yeah.
But then his mum walks out and just notices it and just carries on.
Just carries on. Oh,
and so you're just like, what? Wait a minute, what is this?
Exactly. So immediately, I've already seen this clip when I've sat with him. So now I'm sat on my own in my house, and I'm getting the joke, and I'm laughing, and I'm like, am I supposed to be laughing? Is this how this movie's supposed to set up? And there's Bud Cort, hanged there in the middle of the room, looking at his mum, going,
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, he's dead. I was like, oh no, now he's dying. No, he's still faking it.
He's still faking it.
And then we see him at the dinner table later, and he's like, yeah, I can't talk. Just remember, I hung myself. Yeah. But that's not enough, because he's forced to eat his beetroots.
Yes.
And he goes off into the bathroom and makes an absolute mess of the place.
Oh, man. I'd have killed him if that was my son.
I know. I was just like, man, this mum is so good. Right? I mean, granted, she probably doesn't have to clean it herself, because this is an incredibly wealthy family.
Yes.
And I think they're in San Francisco.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they are, yes.
Necessarily say. We don't really hear about the back history of Harold's dad. We kind of figured that he must have passed away at some point, but as Mum states at the dinner table, like, Dad was a bit eccentric. He swam naked down the Seine once upon a time. But she's very, the actress Vivian Pickles playing Mama Chasen, she is such a figure throughout this whole movie. She loves Harold, but because he's our only son, and because obviously her husband's passed away or left or whatever, he's literally the only connection that she has. And so she just wants to keep him by her all the time, which is then obviously breaking Harold's spirit, because he's got no friends. He doesn't need a job or have a job. He doesn't want for anything because his mum is so rich.
Yeah. And of course, I got an immediate parallel to Fight Club.
Yeah.
Where, of course, Harold, he's given up on life.
Yes.
And so he ends up going... His support groups
Yes.
are funerals.
Yes.
He goes there and he feeds on all of the negative or all of the sadness that's there.
Yeah.
And that's where he first gets introduced to Maude, who kind of signals him, waves him over at one of these church funerals.
Christian face, commend your mercy. Brother, by the help of your grace, may he escape the sentence which he deserves for during...
Man, I'm so glad you said Fight Club, because, I immediately went, oh my God, it's Edward Norton and Helen Bonham Carter.
Right, yeah.
This is amazing.
A lot of people have said there's clear inspirations from this film, this director, in all of the sort of odd bod filmmakers that have come afterwards.
Yeah.
And of course, Harold he's not looking for a relationship. He's not really interested in this woman, but he kind of gets fascinated when he spots her again.
Yeah.
And he also had this incident where he knew something was not quite right with this Maude character when she's in this car and she drives off, and then the priest is just like, hey, that's my car.
Oh, I fucking cried.
That woman! She took my car!
Now, just to say as well, the actress Ruth, she never learned how to drive a car. So all the scenes with her driving is, well, most of the time it's being towed.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because there's a lot of driving sequences.
There are, yes. Now, of course, Mum is trying to fix Harold.
Yeah.
Now, she is also a space cadet. I swear, she does not exist in the same reality as the film or
she's rich.
Or as Harold. Absolutely.
Yeah.
She's on another level. But the actress is fantastic. And she is trying to now set Harold up with a girlfriend. She's like, I know what you need to get you out of your morbid sense of curiosity, and that's a wife.
Yeah.
So here we go. Sit down, Harold. I've got a questionnaire. We've got all these questions I'm going to fill out.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And it's like, do you approve of wife swapping? She's like, well, I don't approve of this question.
Oh yeah. Mama's sitting there answering.
Answering all the questions
together.
herself.
But she just answered every. Oh, the scene was fucking amazing.
It's added to by the fact that Bud Cort, Harold is sat there and he's got this box and he just opens it up and he pulls out the handgun and he starts loading up the bullets. Mum's still reading out the questions and answers.
Yeah.
He shoots himself in the head.
Well, he looks at her first, doesn't he? And he thinks about shooting her, and I'm like, do it, Harold.
It's so
do
funny.
It. And then he's just like, no. And then he brings it back and he shoots himself. And Mum's just like, Harold, please behave yourself while we do this.
Right, exactly. I was just like, her comic timing.
Yeah.
Bud Cort, his expression when he's doing that, it just makes it hilarious because, like, we know he's been faking suicides. You know, we've had scenes with a psychiatrist talking to him. But every time it looks real. Like, the film language says this is not a suicide, this is real.
Yeah.
It's only like by the halfway mark you're just like, yeah, okay, I get it now.
It's like the psychiatrist says to him, doesn't he? He's just like, how many times have you faked your own death? And Bud's just like, 15? I'm like, so he knows what the fuck he's doing.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm also just like, there's a reason why he won't go through with it. He doesn't necessarily really want to die. He kind of wants his mum to actually, you know, leave him alone or love him or do something. You know, he's missing something in his life. So then when he comes across Maude, I like when he goes and he gets the hearse.
Yeah.
Like Bud Cort goes to a scrapyard and he just buys this rundown old hearse and he does it up and he's driving around in it. So then Mum gets rid of it and gets him this brand spanking new Jaguar sports car and he's just really upset. So then Bud converts it into a Jaguar hearse. Which then leads to, Maude has already stolen the priest's car. So then when they go to another funeral, she comes bombing around in Bud's car. And like, he's about to get in and the priest is like, hey, aren't you the woman who stole my car? And she's like, yep, that was probably me.
There you are, madam. Were you not the lady who drove my car off yesterday?
Was that the one with the St. Christopher medal on the dashboard?
Yes.
Then I suppose it was me. Get in, Hal.
You get the sense of this anarchist that's literally just living inside this old lady, who we find out is 79 years old.
Yeah.
And she is just about having fun and about living for the day. And she starts to really bond with Harold, or Harold becomes infatuated with her. He's intrigued by her.
Well, is she? Well, then that's the thing. Like, is she an anarchist, really, or like?
Well, she's perceived that way because she's very anti-authority. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's not fully anti-authority. She does kind of respect certain things, but she always also into, you know, living for the moment, seizing the day. You know, like she said, she lives in this old train car, which I thought was just such an amazing set. And then her place is just filled with all the stuff. And she's like, I don't have stuff. I have memorabilia that I've collected over time. You know, and you're like, oh my God. And the way that Ruth Gordon kind of created this character, which, Harold starts to become infatuated by, because of all the women that he loves, obviously he doesn't really necessarily love his mum, and the dates that he's been set up with, he's not really got anything in common. With Maude, at least they've got the bond of going to funerals together, but now she's just dragging him along on all of her adventures. I mean, they see a tree. Right, they're bombing along in their fucking sports car that she's stolen, and she sees this tree and she parks the car up on the fucking sidewalk. And she's like, look at this tree, it's so bare, it needs oxygen. And Howard's just like, look, we can't do it, this is public property. And she's just like, no, we're gonna have to do something about it. And the police have come along and they've seen this car parked up on the curb, and they're looking at the car. And Maude comes along and she's like, oh my God, officers, what's going on? Is there something wrong with this car? And they're like, yeah, it's illegally parked. If we catch the people... And she's like, yeah, okay, thanks. What about that car over there? No, that one's fine. And she goes over and she steals another car.
Right, she waves.
Why?
The copper's just sat in the car looking up like, wait a minute.
Yeah, he's just fuck. But then it's when they come back later, they steal a truck. Because obviously she doesn't drive, she hasn't got a license, you know. She steals a truck and they steal the fucking tree out of the ground. And they're
just bombing along the motorway.
And along comes an incredibly young Tom Skerritt on a motorbike as a cop. And this sequence, well, I was in stitches because she gets pulled over and he's license and registration. She's like, I don't have one. He's just like, what do you mean? She's like, I've driven for 4 years and I've never needed one. And you can tell that she's going to get arrested, but as he's getting ready, she drives off.
Yeah, she's like, well, thank you, officer, bye.
Bye.
And I was just like, no, wait a minute. Like, do I actually pursue this, or I suppose I've got to?
And he tries to. He pursues after him for a while, but then she does a bunch of donuts around him, and he gets lost on his bike, so she bombs off. And then they dig a hole, and they put the tree in there, and it's such a little beautiful moment of freedom and in the forest, and Maude's so happy and Harold's happy.
Yeah.
And then they're bombing back, and the copper tries to arrest them again. And they get pulled over, and you're thinking, oh shit.
It's real.
Yeah.
Yes, possession of a stolen tree. Where's the tree?
Oh, we planted
You
it.
planted it. Is this your shovel?
No.
Possession of a stolen shovel.
Don't get officious. You nudge yourself when you're officious. That is the curse of a government job.
Until Maude steals his bike.
Absolutely brilliant. It's just brilliant. I mean, yeah, it's not really plausible, but, you know, it's...
I don't know, mate. I've seen grannies do crazy shit.
You know, you'd never suspect them, would you?
No. But it's also... Maude just has this whole history, and there is this one beautiful moment in the entire film that sticks with me, and I think it really would stick with any viewer of this if you're watching it all the way through. And like, it made me think after I'd watched it that there's a lot of people that watch this movie from 1971 or not even contemplate watching it because, oh, it's old, I don't like the actors, I don't like the story. But there's heart to this story, which a lot of films really don't have. And there's a little sequence where you only get a brief glimpse, but it's where they're hugging next to the river, and he looks down at her wrist, and Harold notices just a concentration camp number on Maude's wrist, and it's such a beautiful moment because previously, before that, like, I'd missed who she was talking about in the train car to him. Like, Ruth Gordon went on a bit of a speech about a loved one.
Right.
And I missed if it was her husband or a boyfriend or something.
I think it was an actual historical figure.
Right.
Maybe she knew him. I don't know my history on this subject entirely.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, she's reminiscing about somebody, I think, who was wrongly imprisoned.
Right.
If that's the conversation I think
Yeah,
you're meaning.
yeah.
Because, yeah, I think she mentions it again at that sequence where the sun's setting and they're looking out over the horizon. You've got all this sort of hippie kind of stuff everywhere. It also, I mean, it's like a beach, but it also looks like run down.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the sunset, it's cinematic sunset.
So beautiful.
It's so beautifully framed with the two of, just seeing the backs of them. They're almost silhouetted.
Yeah.
But yeah, having that like 2 seconds of seeing the code on her arm, it tells you everything. It tells you everything. The important thing is really as well why it's so poignant is that neither character acknowledges it.
No.
And neither character mentions it throughout the rest of the film. But you as an audience get to know, because we know history and everything else of what happened there. We can pretty much surmise her entire backstory and also maybe give an explanation as to why she lives the way she does, because she's living for everyone who didn't make it out.
That's it. That's what I was going to say. It's like you just get this number and you're just like, this 79-year-old woman, crazy, free-spirited, all this stuff has been and seen some shit. Like, I was trying to work it out. Like, she's 79 at that point, so she must have been maybe in her 30s maybe when she was in the camp. I'm just speculating. And I'd hate to imagine what she would have had to have gone through, what she has seen, what she had to deal with after. And now here she is. I loved the sequence where they like, it was a weird transition. They were sat in a field of daisies. There was just flowers everywhere. And Harold says to her, like, I wish I was like these daisies. They're like all the same. And she's like, they're not all the same. Some bend left, some bend right, some have fewer petals, everybody's different. And then it kind of weirdly transitioned that the two of them were sat in a graveyard now, and it was just wall to wall white gravestones. And I was like, oh my god, the imagery in this movie is so beautiful.
It really is, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just leveled everything in. That all I have to do is I have to just follow this young guy and this old woman walk through life. You know, they've come at a point in their life, and Harold is learning a lot.
Yeah, I mean, this film takes place over the course of a week, I believe.
Yeah,
because
that
Maude
fucking
says
shocked
like
me.
she's turning 80 in within a week, and,
Yeah, man.
and that's her prime is over.
Yeah.
And so she's living every moment up until her 80th birthday. All the while, like you said, we keep cutting back to Harold, who has to, you know, after some incidents, his mum has had enough with him, and it's like, I'm taking you, you're joining the army. You're taking you to your uncle's, who, you know, he's lost an arm in an accident or at war.
The uncle was amazing.
Right.
He got a little string that he pulls that
To
actually
salute.
moves the actual arm.
The
that
sleeve,
doesn't do anything.
yeah.
Oh my god.
But things don't work out here either. He ends up literally recruiting Maude.
Well, they go to the beach, and Harold convinces his uncle that he's really excited to join the army because all he wants to do is kill.
Yeah.
All he wants to do is kill, and you start to get from the uncle that he's like, "Whoa, Harold,
That's a part of it, but wait a minute, yeah.
that's not all. No, I'm gonna squash people's heads in and
With my
break
bare
their
hands.
break their and smash." And you're like,
And
"Whoa,
bayonet people. And-
Okay, Harold, calm down." And then they come around this corner. It's just them. It's just the uncle and Harold go on this beach, and they come around this corner, and there's Maude with a sign that says "Peace."
Right.
And they start, like, Harold and Maude start having this fight, like,
This play fight.
you're the guy, you're the people trying to destroy the world, and Harold's like, yeah, well, you're the commies that are trying to take over, and they run down that stairway.
Yeah.
Another beautiful shot. I was like, man, I wish I could walk down those stairs. It just looks so fun. The different dates. Man, oh god,
Yeah.
I was kind of in stitches with these. Like, is it the first or second one that he sets himself on fire?
I think it's the first one. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the girls just sat there looking out the window like, oh my god, Harold! And
It hurt as well, where she was like, the mum says to the girl, like, so, whose idea was it for you to come to meet Harold? She was like, well, I'm part of a sorority, and I drew the shortest straw,
yeah, no shit.
so I wanted to see. And then you had another girl who Harold shows her what Harry Carey is like, because they've got these swords, and so he, stabs himself in the gut and he rips his guts open. And she loves it so much, she's an actress, that she starts doing Juliet.
Right, from Romeo and Juliet. So she starts performing with him, and I was like, well, you know what? At least she's trying. I was like, that's not actually a bad match.
Exactly.
Like, you can both have your kill yourself theatrics whenever you want now.
But Harold really doesn't like any of them. There's one woman for him, and so he's got this whole plan to marry her on her 80th birthday, and he sets all up. He goes there and he's got the flowers all ready. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. I kept waiting for the moment for Maude to turn around to Harold and say, like, no, we can't. I'm too old. You're too young. Blah blah blah. But she just went with it, and I was just like, that's exactly what we kind of say in some kind of cultures and things. It's like, age isn't really a number as long as you're two consenting adults. And Maude really does kind of love Harold, not as a friend or sees him as a son. She actually sees him as a young man, and she's loving the fact that he's seeing her as a young woman. And he goes there, and he's getting her birthday all ready, and he says, like, I love you so much, and I really want to spend the rest of our time together. And he's got a ring. And Maude turns around, she's like, oh my god, this is so wonderful. This is going to make this farewell so much harder. And I was like, what?
A farewell?
A farewell, what?
Where are you going?
Where are you going, Maude?
Oh, you're not going anywhere. Are you?
Yes, dear. I took the tablets an hour ago. I'll be gone by midnight.
And the way that Ruth Gordon just turns around so fucking eloquently, so fucking just straight lace, where she's just like, I took the pills like an hour ago. I'll be gone by midnight. I fucking died inside.
Oh yeah, it's so crushing.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh man, like there's nothing you can do. Like Harold he is so resigned.
This whole hospital sequence was amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Because, like, you want her to live. Part of you wants her to live. Part of you wants her and Harold to be together because that's how these rom-coms these stories work out. But also part of you, from everything that you've known and everything that you've followed with Ruth Gordon explaining to you as her character, you also kind of know that you're like, she's not leaving the hospital. And so the director, Hal Ashby, I haven't seen a lot of his work. I did wiki it after, and I particularly like the poster of from The Last Detail, I think it is, with Jack Nicholson in a sailor suit like this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of got to see that. For some reason, Jack Nicholson kind of. But the imagery and the music in the film just works so well, especially this last sequence where, we're intercutting between Harold driving his car really, 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 really fast to him getting Maude to the hospital. He's saying to her, like, you can't die. And she's just like, look, go and love some more. Okay, this was wonderful. I've had my time. And, they get to the hospital and the music, Cat Stevens comes back. And like I said, we hadn't had Cat Stevens for about half an hour.
Yeah.
And it was like...
it hurts almost when it comes in because it's the familiar.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it just cements like, this is going where you think it's going.
Yeah. But Bud Cort was so brilliant because... You can't hear him. He's talking to the doctors and the music's playing over all the words and stuff. And you see their last grasp.
Yes.
As they went through the door.
Yeah.
And then you see just montage of him sitting in different places waiting. And then the doctor comes out and Bud just breaks down. It's just music.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah.
And
the
we're
song continues
between the car. And so now that he's driving. And then the car goes off a fucking cliff.
And freeze frames. And you're just like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Like, I know he was like... Yeah. Suicide, fantasy, but...
Yeah, but immediately my brain was like, nah, it can't be, because Maude would not want them
exactly,
do that.
Yeah. I was just like, that's not right. And then, we watched the car. I thought the credits were going to roll. I really did. But then the car continues.
Yeah.
And literally plummets and hits the ground upside down. And I was like...
Ooh, okay.
Oh, he dead.
No.
But no. He's actually... playing the instrument that Maude gave him, because she asked him, what does he play? And he's like, I don't play anything. And so she opened this wardrobe full of instruments and she went, yes, this one for you. And the end of the film, he's just starts strumming again. Well, we saw him earlier playing it, but now he's actually getting into the song or into a rhythm.
Like he's going to enjoy life from now on. Music, he's free. He can. He's gonna. Maybe Maude's death is his traumatic experience, and now to enjoy life as Maude had with hers. I mean, there's
that's the lesson she left him. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
many different lessons and ideas that you can look at it, but it's just such a like I was hurt, but I was also uplifted at the end of the credits when the credits started to go and he's just playing music. That I was like, I can't, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah,
I'm fucking glad, man.
It is so bittersweet. Ian, what were your favourite scenes?
Oh man, it's a lot of Ruth Gordon. It is like her stealing the car at the beginning, and then bombing around in the priest's car. Like I said, the crazy driver. She's going up against the tree. The personality quiz sequence with Bud and his mum. I was fucking dying. The actress playing the mum, her answers, like you said, her comedy timing, every time she's writing, should women be in politics? Well, yes, maybe one day. And I'm just like, okay, so there's a very conservative view.
Do you sometimes have headaches or backaches after a difficult day?
Yes, I do indeed. Do you go to sleep easily? I'd say so.
The earth is my body, the stars are my head. That was a line from Maude describing just how she exists. And I was just like, that's... I understand like a lot of people give into that whole, hippie, free love, free world kind of stuff. But like I said, once you get to the age of 80, once you've been through some shit, you might just kind of give up on the ideologies of, hating on things. You might just be like, oh, fuck it. I'm the earth and the stars, mate. I'm stardust. The fucking cop chase with Tom Skerritt, that was just absolutely amazing. The first time going there, dropping the tree off, and then they're coming back and losing him again and stealing the bike. I love the whole uncle sequence when they're running around the beach, because this is the way the Bud Cort is as well. Like I've seen a lot of stuff that Bud Cort's in, but I don't know if he's more more of an actor who can emote without emoting. Like in this, we knew he was dark and somber because he just had this look. He was so quiet. Every now and again I have to remind myself he's God from Dogma.
Right.
He's the guy. He's the guy at the beach at the beginning, Dogma. So he's God. Yeah. So I have to remind myself. And my favorite last sequence, it hurts, but it's the sequence where she announces that she's taken some pills, and Bud, screams, "What?" And then the whole journey in the ambulance to the montage in the hospital, Cat Stevens playing over. Oh my God. If we could all go that way. Cat Stevens playing.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, this film is a treasure trove of favourite scenes. For me, the first one that stood out was Mum reading the dating profiles and questioning him whilst Harold is loading his gun. Yeah. The comic timing there was just brilliant. The composition, perfect. It told the story really, really well. And of course, I loved all of the subsequent dates as well, where he literally just scares them all off. And there's one shot in particular that just cracked me up so much. I actually found out that it was an ad-libbed moment as well. It wasn't scripted or planned. And that's after he's done the Burning Man.
Yeah.
And the girlfriends run off, and the camera kind of just lingers there on Harold and his mum.
And he looks
and
at the
Harold
camera.
looks at the camera and he just slowly starts to give this sinister grin. That was not scripted. He just did it. And I was like, yeah, that was perfect. There's also another moment where he flips the finger as well. Again, that wasn't scripted. He just kind of did it. And I was just like, the comedic timing of it worked.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite sequences, because it was so bizarre to hear these words coming out of a priest. Where the priest is like, "Harold, I'm here to sit you down and tell you that what you're doing is morally questionable. How could your young, firm flesh intermingle with that withered, sagging body?" It was just like, what?
The priest delivery of his description of their sex life,
Man, I mean, just to go to show how far-reaching this film has actually been in pop culture. Even Family Guy riffed that priest sequence from the movie, with Stewie being the priest.
The fact of your firm young body commingling with the
withered flesh, sagging breasts.
Another sort of moment in the film as well. It wasn't really the scene itself, but it was just some of the dialogue, which I really liked, especially some of the sort of enlightening things that Maude would say. And of course, Harold is just like, I enjoy being dead. And Maude is like, well, a lot of people enjoy being dead, but they're really not.
Yeah.
So why bother, limboing around when you could just have a spark and an energy and just go. And even if you get hurt, that's a part of it. Learn and move on and enjoy the hurt and enjoy what comes next.
Yes.
Instead of just having dead. And all of the little dialogue moments like that where Harold is realizing what sort of state of mind he's in, which for a lot of people would probably relate to it as well. And then you get a breath of fresh air, a flash of energy in Maude, and it's captivating. You get drawn to it. They are opposites that attract, and all of the moments that they share together just endear them to each other more and more. It's so sweet. Ian, do you recommend Harold and Maude?
Totally recommend Harold and Maude. And I will also throw out the warning as well that if you are not open to new ideas and trying out different things in film, then you are not going to find anything in this movie enjoyable. You're going to sit there and say, oh, this movie's boring, it's old, it's got nothing going on. And that will just show how maybe naive and closed-minded that you could be, which makes you a Harold, where a lot of people would like to be a Maude, you know, people who have been through some shit, seen some shit and gone, look, you know, it's hard, life sucks, it's always dark and broody and stuff. You got to smile and get up and keep going, because one day it's all gone and it's all over. And I'd never even considered ever fucking watching this movie, or a movie on even along this line of kind of a plot. But like I said, when I got the idea to sit down and watch it for the review, I was happy. I was comforted. You know, I didn't need to overanalyze or look into multiple layers of drama and understand. All I had to do was watch this little old lady go about her life, you know, telling me to buck up and dance a little and maybe sing a little and be happy. And by the end of it, I was like, yeah, bitch, you're right.
This is a cult classic film by director Hal Ashby that has been championed and loved by critics and fans since its release, and I'm glad to have now seen it and to also sing its praises and fully, highly recommend Harold and Maude as must-watch cinema. It's a very simple story that everyone can relate to about life, love and death, with truly fantastic performances from Ruth Gordon and Bud Cort, with an equally brilliant script from Colin Higgins. It's a wonderful and beautiful reminder to live each day to the fullest, to love unconditionally and seize those moments. There is some stunning cinematography, great composition, smart editing and good use of music. Cat Stevens wrote songs specifically for the film that just resonates with the characters and has a real charm to it. The film was also highly entertaining, filled with dark comedy moments and genuine laugh-out-loud moments. It was a pure joy to experience this story and film. It's included in the 1001 movies to see before you die. It's listed in the top 100 greatest love stories in the American Film Institute. It's timeless, it's controversial, it's part of the counterculture movement of the late 60s that resonates today. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. Highest recommendation. They will defy everything you think you've seen or heard about on-screen lovers. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
My body has been a good friend, but I won't need it when I reach the end.
The earth is my body. My head is in the stars.